Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to stage Jürgen Lindner, Oracle Senior Vice President of SaaS Product Marketing.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for spending your lunchtime with us. I know it's a precious time of the day, so you're spending that with us is quite a commitment. Appreciate it big time. I'm going to skip through the obligatory safe harbor statements, but typically when I talk to customers, one of the fundamental things we're seeing is the pace of change. And the session is really titled Outpace Change with Oracle, the time is now. Sometimes it helps, however, to take a step back and really look around what's going on. I'll give you a couple of those examples. On the upper left-hand side, what you're seeing is, for example, a small startup based in Redwood Shores that perfected the art of 3D printing to a point where they can customize the shoe to the person wearing it. Each and every one of those 30,000 struts in the shoe can be personalized. This by itself is remarkable, but even more remarkable is that a startup, in teaming up with an industry giant such as Adidas, can disrupt an industry, because now Under Armour, Reebok, all those other companies have to follow suit in utmost hyper-personalization. Voice. If you've been following this conference, digital assistants have been a very big theme of this conference. But it's not just simple conversations, it's intelligent conversations that we're aiming for. For me, that's very personal. I have a daughter who is dyslexic, and I learn from her every day how static menu screens for her are meaningless. She will always gravitate to ask a question and is expecting, as a consumer, this instant gratification of a response. Now we are taking that to a very different level on the enterprise to turn every question that you might have into a conversation with your system. Because if I would ask you right now to raise your hand, when is the last time you had an intelligent conversation with your ERP system? There would not be a lot of hand raises. Quite the contrary, but we're aiming for that. Autonomous fleets. I mean, my German accent gives me away. I'm biased. This is Mercedes-Benz. They test drove this on the German Autobahn for a while, but the platoon of self-driving trucks are roaming the streets of Ohio, for example, right now. I thought personally that's a couple of decades out, actually. It's not. It's real. Actually, in the US, for the very first time, of all of the eligible teens who can get a driver's license, the need for getting a driver's license is going down. Ride-sharing, Lyft, Uber completely disrupts the desire of actually owning a driver's license. For me, unfathomable. I couldn't wait to get a car. I mean, maybe it's a demographics type of things. Maybe in cities it's very different than if you're somewhere out in the country, but I mean, very different disruptions we're seeing here. How we think about customer has evolved. And I would like to think that whatever we knew in the past as customer focus has given way to a new currency, and this currency is customer obsession. If you have been attending Steve Miranda's keynote yesterday, we had Ferrari up on stage, and they took it to a different level. They said, we don't talk about customer experience, we talk about customer emotions. And an emotion for a customer is very powerful, so you need to be able to tap into that sentiment at all times. That means, however, when you cultivate talent, you need to think very differently, because what you own as your talent pool is your fundamental asset to really drive digitalization and this change. Business model change. Emerging technologies have fundamentally different aspects how we need to think about models. Everything is moving from a product company to a services company. Recent example, I was in the car buying business, so I'm a glad new car owner, and I needed car insurance. And I hated to pay the same price of car insurance if I'm not operating the car. So I found this little USB device that you can plug into your car, and all of a sudden you have usage-based billing. There's a trust element, there's a big brother element, I give you that. But all of a sudden, I have a very fair usage-based billing, because I mean, the company will see if my car is being actively driven, sitting in a driveway, if I roll over a stop sign, but I have a very fair billing system right now for my car. Interaction with systems. I'm not sure if you've seen that on the lower left-hand side. MIT has produced a device which is called Alter Ego. Blew me away recently because it's a device you strap to your jawbone, and no longer do you need to speak. It's sufficiently enough if you silently talk to yourself to pick up the vibrations, the utterance of your tongue and everything, to ask a machine. The machine translates that question into an answer via vibrations back to your jawbone. So the tagline is you have the entire internet in your brain. It's fascinating. Technology goes far. And then on the middle part, I hope everyone knows this lady. It's actually the first humanoid citizen robot. The key word here being citizen. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has bestowed citizenship on a humanoid. And they have a minister of artificial intelligence, so also different demographics that are changing. So the coexistence of humans and machine is only going to accelerate. And with that, every company right now needs to opt in the future. The question is, are you ready? Are you prepared from an infrastructural perspective to take advantage of that? And do you strike the right partnerships? And we'd love to help here. When you think about going to the cloud, there's a couple of different things that we want you to think about. It's about connecting outcomes. The experience economy is really here. We want to make sure that whatever we're experiencing as a customer is translated seamlessly into a delivery mechanism. When you hire talent, we see dramatic shifts in the demographics that oftentimes C-level functions right now are filled with very junior talent, where in the past they were hired for seniority. Oftentimes now they are being brought in as a change agent. So anything from the shop floor to C-level needs to be looked at as a talent pool very differently for digital talent curation. Business model agility, let's take Oracle as an example. I hope you all took advantage over the course of this event to look at Oracle, our own journey to the cloud. We did it for the first time here this year, but it's a fundamental transformation because we have a hardware business, we have a software on-premise business, a subscription business, and in every one of those businesses, it's a different currency of success. What that means is in the on-premise world, customer acquisition was the ultimate currency. In software as a service, very different currency. It's retention. If you're not satisfied with our service, you're free to go. So you need to be paranoid about your customer being taken away from you. And how we think about supply chain has fundamentally shifted in the age of emerging technologies because you need to be able to deliver supply chain in perfect alignment with your front office. Whatever you deliver on the front office as an experience needs to be held up by a digitally responsive supply chain. So we think very holistically about those business processes. But then there is a new element that rises to the top when you go into different deployment models, cybersecurity and hyperconnectivity of multiple systems and data sources. And that is the clue here in the middle. Shouldn't surprise anyone if you've been hearing the conference here, but data for us is a critical asset. But what you do with data, how do you bring it to life, what you can get out of data, is the significant advantage where we as Oracle hope we can help our customers to really shepherd a journey here. And that is precisely the conversation I typically have with customers. Now, you can take multiple steps to the cloud. You can say, okay, I tinker and toy with the cloud. I try this particular product here for a while. I strike this particular partnership. But I have a couple of conversations then with CIOs as well, where they said, oh my God, this tactical cloud adoption has really made the complexity of our system landscape almost unmanageable. Which is precisely to the point, tactical cloud adoption should now, at this point in time, give way to strategic cloud-based conversations here. Not only is it costly to embark on this tactical cloud conversation, but also the data fragmentation that you potentially curate. Data is your single largest asset as a corporation. If you have it fragmented as too many data sources, you have to resort to very expensive data warehousing mechanisms to potentially bring it together. And in the age of emerging technologies, specifically machine learning, you want to have it in one place in real time to really optimize the data set at all times. Security risks. I'm personally a victim of cyber theft. It's not fun, I can tell you. If you're being called that someone used your social security number to apply for a job, that gets you jumping. So I'm very paranoid if it comes to security type of aspects. And the infrastructure that we have built our applications on top gives us a significant advantage to also have all of the advantages of the emerging technologies in the platform. And dealing with different vendor platforms, innovation platforms, can be a challenge. And that is precisely why we've built what I refer to as the only cloud for your entire business. Pretty bold statement, I understand that. But if we look a little bit about that, you are free as a customer to pick any starting point, any line of business transformation in this journey, with the comfort of never outgrowing the vendor relationship. Wherever your journey takes you, whatever is your starting point, we're already there. We're very fond and confident, not cocky, confident, that any type of customer journey, any line of business transformation we can help you with, and we have enough customers, and we're going to bring some of them on stage a little later here, to really embark on a journey with comfort, of bulletproof security, take advantage of our advances in the infrastructure, such as the autonomous database. When you use our SaaS applications, all of that is embedded for you as a head start. Now, enough about me talking, because we want you to experience the Oracle. And experience is a key word. And I want to bring on stage esteemed colleague Winston, who has joined us fairly recently to really redefine the experience, how you as a customer interact with Oracle software at large. So Winston, please do join me on stage. I cannot see you. A lot of bright light, but hopefully here. Winston.
Hey, Jürgen.
Thank you so much. Winston has joined us fairly recently. So Winston, maybe introduce yourself real quick and let the audience know as to why you joined Oracle and what you're working on.
Yeah, thanks, Jürgen. Yeah, my name is Winston Wang, and I lead the UX design team for the ERP product line here at Oracle. I joined about almost a year and a half now from Amazon, where I was a design director for Amazon Prime Video. Mm-hmm. So just excited to be here. I'm starting to get ahead of myself here, but you probably start seeing the amount of the seriousness that the company is really putting into creating great design. It's all around us here at OpenWorld, and I'm going to give you a sneak peek in some of the other design concepts. But I came because it's such a great opportunity to create great design here at Oracle for our customers, through our products.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I'll let you go through a couple of those examples, because I do think if you have not experienced that, it's tough to believe how Oracle is changing. But also, you are working right now on a very strategic project for us in redefining with select customer the future of finance. So as much as you can tell, I'm happy for you.
Yeah, yeah. I'll say a few things. I got to speak about it a little bit earlier today with Chris Kite and a lot of other leaders. It's called Project Pythia, and it is a cross-departmental, cross-product line initiative to really reimagine finance. If you have automation and AI and machine learning at the core, if you are revisiting what the user experience is with some of the work we're doing with our Redwood design system, what would you end up with? And we can't do that without going and talking to you, the finance leaders out there taking care of your companies. How would you reimagine your companies rebuilt with so much automation and intelligence? I think you're going to end up with something different if we look at those new workflows and processes and policies. So I can give you a little bit more about bringing you into the process of what we're doing with Project Pythia and our approach to designing for AI and machine learning. So there's some questions you'd asked me earlier, right? Why does UX matter for SaaS? I usually give three, the number's always three. There's always going to be three good answers, but these two are the ones that really, I think, jumped out for this session. One, design matters so much now because we just expect it. My boss, Hillel Cooperman, says this over and over again. He said this earlier today. If we have great experiences in our personal lives, why wouldn't we want them in our work lives too? We've got supercomputers in our pockets, these iPhones and Android devices, and so it's really raised the bar, and we expect it, and workers deserve it. So that's the first thing. That's why great design matters for SaaS. The other thing is automation, AI, and machine learning, and it changes everything. So I'm just going to start showing you what I mean by that, right? So our vision is that you're going to be working the future of work. You know, I saw that in the earlier slide, but we're redefining what the future of work is as a partnership between human workers and automation, machine learning. And let me just show you this diagram. This is going to get a little abstract here, but I think it's useful. That's a person icon, and they are interacting with a disk. It's a circular disk in profile, and that represents all the surface area of a manual user interface for an application to get work done. That's the world of today, right? A worker is manually getting work done. But what we're envisioning for the future of work is 2 new layers of UI that would sit in front of this manual UI, the highly automated UI and the semi-automated UI. And the highly automated UI is a bit smaller, right? Because you're going to interact with it a little bit less. It's really taking care of most of the work for you and only asking you to step in and manage by exception when you need to. You're also monitoring the automation, seeing how it's performing and tuning it. If it needs your help, you're going to go to the semi-automated layer where you're helping it out, right? Some of these things where you've seen expenses being demoed earlier, perhaps, it says, like, I can't figure this out, or I need a description, I need a number of attendees. You step in there and you add that information. But if you want to do it all yourself, you can still sweep all of those aside and do it manually. And so a lot of this thinking is wherever you are in your change, your journey of change into automation as an individual or as an organization, you have all of these 3 layers available to you to do the work. And of course, we're going to design it very carefully to be seamless and effective. So that's a trick. When I came into doing this, I was telling Jürgen earlier, I'm kind of geeking out on designing for automation and AI. I thought, oh my gosh, with automation, there'll be nothing left to design, right? So as a UI designer, what am I going to go do? But I actually realized there's 3 times as much work to do, as you can see through the diagram. Just several more things to mention before we show examples. These are things that we on the design team keep in mind in designing for SaaS and with automation in mind. So don't automate the past, design the future, right? A lot of us are thinking very carefully about this. We want to revisit the workflows and the roles and the organization itself. Otherwise, you're just accelerating the past and not really taking advantage of what automation and AI can do. The second point, less work, more management. I had fun writing that. That's not the usual thing people think about, right? Less work, more management. But it's because workers are becoming managers, right? Managers of automation. And also, you're managing by exception. And then you're designing for the perpetual beginner, right? Because you're always, if you're not using the UI as much, you need to have a very intuitive, user-friendly experience. And so that's really changing how we are approaching the design. The third point, new UI technologies. Jürgen, you mentioned that earlier. We don't want to just create great mobile apps and web applications. Now there's chat, there's voice, there's IoT, and being able to have great experiences across all those new ways of interacting and also synthesize them together is a huge challenge. And then finally, building trust. And this is true at the organizational level, but also at the individual level. This journey of change management to automation, it's got to be considered carefully. You're giving responsibility for huge amounts of your business to this automation. And so we're thinking very carefully for the leaders of these organizations, for the organization as a whole, but also for the journey of each individual worker. How are we going to earn their trust so that they feel comfortable working with it? Mm-hmm. So it's a huge, somewhat intangible, potentially, part of the experience, but you see it in all the nice touches and the ensuring that people feel like they're in control. So I'll show you a few examples of this. This is from our expenses, next generation expenses application. You can see right up there at the top, it says there are 7 exceptions that need your review, right? So that's managing by exception. And the idea here is that almost all the work, let's say an approver needs to do to approve expense reports, is being done anyway. So, for this week, there's only 7 things to look at. Maybe that's for an entire month. And in this example, Susan's cell phone bill is a little higher than usual. So that's an anomaly, and that's worthy of bringing to the manager's attention. Here's the Oracle Assistant, digital assistant. I think some of you guys have probably seen this in demos already, and it's in a chat-based interaction, and we call this concept Ask Oracle. So 2 concepts in one here, very easy to then create an expense transaction, add expenses for $7.56 for coffee with a candidate. Very efficient to create that task. And then This actually hasn't been shown at the conference yet. So you're seeing an expense report that an approver might then be able to have walk through, and we've animated it so the expense report is actually playing back for the approver. And managed by exception is happening right here because everything that is pre-approved is fine, but as soon as it finds something that might have a problem, it's going to stop, right? The human can then double-click, check it out, and say, oh, okay. Now, the person is approving this, right? But there's a suggestion. Maybe you should raise the auto-approval limit because if you're okay with a higher amount, then maybe the preset's too low. So that's what the person has done here. And then finally, one other thing, more controls for automatic approval here, right? So the human user is always in control of the automation. They want to override things, they want to tune things. For example, for this gentleman, Blake Townsend, the manager can say, this is exactly what I feel comfortable auto-approving for Blake. So just some examples of how we're designing for automation.
I think it's fascinating because, I mean, that is going to change fundamentally how users interact with software, how finance individuals can take control, actually. So I want to thank you so much for showing that to us. And as said, I mean, there was some candy in there because we didn't show that the rest of the conference. So you're working with a couple of design customers right now. I wish you all the very best on this journey.
Thank you.
And can't wait for us to deliver on this.
Sounds good, Jürgen.
Thank you so much, Winston.
Thank you.
And with that, this is not about Oracle. This is about our customers sharing their experiences as well. I would love to welcome on stage a very esteemed panel. I feel very privileged, actually, to sharing this panel. We have Sandra Clark from Blue Shield of California, and we have Derek Gafford from TrueBlue. So please do join me on stage. And by the way, this is a very interactive session. So if you have any questions, I will alter my flow of questions on the fly, OK? This is your session. John, thank you.
Thank you.
Derek, thank you.
Next one over. Yeah.
Maybe I'll allow you first to introduce your corporations a little bit more to the audience and what's your role and what you're doing at the corporations. Ladies first, Sandy.
I'm Sandra Clark. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for Blue Shield of California. We are a not-for-profit health plan serving members in California and across the U.S. through the Association of Blue Cross Blue Shield. Mm-hmm. And I'm responsible for all of our financial activities at the company, as well as corporate development and a few other things.
Fantastic.
TrueBlue is a human capital company. There's basically two main things that we do. One is we provide contingent labor, temporary staffing for a variety of industrial types of roles. The other thing that we do is we do recruitment process outsourcing. This is where a company outsources its complete recruiting function to us, and we source, screen, and then deliver candidates. So basically the company is all around helping other companies find various forms of talent. I am the CFO there. I've been the CFO for about 15 years. My role includes the traditional CFO activities of accounting, finance, and so forth, as well as the strategy function reports into finance, and then have an active role on all of our technology steering committees.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Sandy, we had the pleasure of being on a panel and talking about the future of work and emerging technologies in general. But if you think back a little bit as to when you embarked on the cloud journey first, right? What were the business drivers that really drove you towards that conversation, actually?
So I wasn't actually at the company when they started this conversation. I walked in and was the benefit of, oh, thank goodness they're on Oracle. The primary driver was that we had a financial system that was over 30 years old. Most of my employees are younger than this system. And we realized it needed to be replaced. We had a pretty aggressive schedule for making that happen. And we wanted it to be with cutting-edge technology, best in class. We wanted something where we no longer had to worry about doing upgrades on a regular basis and everything that goes with that. And so those were extremely important criteria for us, along with moving toward more data consistency, more data transparency. And for those reasons, we decided that the Oracle Cloud solution was the best one for us.
Fantastic. Thank you. I hope it's a recorded statement. That was awesome. Derek, TrueBlue.
Well, there were a couple of reasons. I think there's a lot of things we could talk about, but to try to put it really simply as far as what the catalysts were for us is, one, we were swimming in systems. We've been very acquisitive. Some of this was because of acquisitions, but it was also we didn't have an ERP in place. We had a lot of best of breeds. We had over 20 different technology stacks in place to run the back office operations. And so we were doing one of two things. We were spending either all of our time on fixing something that was broken to keep harmony within the technology footprint, or we were doing an implementation of something that was at the end of its life. Maybe better categorized as things that were 3 or 4 years past their end of life. So that's what we were spending all of our time doing. So we had to get out of that business because we just didn't feel like we were moving anything forward. So in the end, we wanted to make a decision to get a platform for long-term growth and innovation. So one, we could get out of that. We could make a significant step forward in paying off some technology debt that had built up, and really make this our last implementation. So we weren't focused on that anymore and focused on really creating more sustainable value and innovation on that platform.
I think one of the questions I get most actually in terms of any conversation of a customer is where to start, right? I mean, all of you guys are on the cloud journey. If you look back as to where you started and where you're at right now, what would be your advice there?
I think you need a clear list of what your key business priorities are, the outcomes that you want to see from that. And I would suspect that once you do that, the idea of the cloud as a solution is going to be a pretty obvious one. But you have to start with that. What do you need, not just now, but what does your business strategy say you're going to be in 10 years from now? Because this is not something you want to have to do every 5 years, change your financial systems or your ERP. But for me, that was very important because we're now looking at things like we've started up a new subsidiary to support providers. We are in different areas than I think were ever even contemplated when they were first evaluating Oracle. But because we're in the cloud and it has the flexibility that it does, it can support that. But we had to have a long-range vision that, hey, we wanted to have some flexibility for the unknowns in the future.
Fantastic. Derek, where did your journey start?
Well, a real turning point for us in our finance organization was really accepting the responsibility that we had to own it. This wasn't an IT responsibility. This was a business responsibility. And then with that turning point and getting alignment with that across the finance organization, that's really what created the momentum to really own this. Because we could have continued to gotten by each quarter and each year hobbling along. But once we got a broader consensus of ownership on just recognizing what the cost of not acting was and how apathetic, too, our finance and IT cultures had gotten with so many applications. I mean, the way it went was, well, why would I spend time learning all of those applications where they're just going to change anyway? And so that doesn't give you a culture that's marching you forward to making innovation really part of the day job. So that was a real turning point for us. And from then, in our strategic planning, we decided, look, we're gonna take all of these out. We're gonna put in full suite of ERP, EPM, and HCM. And so that's what we did this year, is we took out all of those almost 25 applications and put that product suite of Oracle's in place.
So maybe staying with you, Derek, what were some of the impacts you have seen to date? I mean, for us, it's always advising customers also, what do other customers like themselves see as real-life business impacts?
Yeah.
You have a couple
Well,
of
I'll give you a few, but you recognize we're still real early in our journey here. But some of the basics is with that implementation, we took out 2/3 of the interfaces that we had in finance with technology. So we alleviated a lot of IT time, a lot of business time, and just simplifying that platform. I'm happy to say all of those components, they work. Okay, so we're not doing a lot of runaround on trying to keep harmony. That's how the system's designed. No one appreciates that more than us. But we're also starting to see some business value drivers. We have a 6-day close process. We've knocked a day off. We're on track to have that down to 4 days. So it's not just about closing the books faster. I mean, that's getting information out to all of our business units 2 days faster. There's only 20-some business days. That's a 10% increase. We have a plan in place to bring down, and it's happening. It's actually built into our run rate right now to bring our finance run rate down by about 5%. We think we can do more, but with that system in place, we can really leverage our whole global workforce. So that's a 6-7-figure number for us. We've knocked out a variety of SOX controls. I mean, I go along with a lot of bread and butter types of items that we have knocked out in a very short period of time.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Sandy.
Well, for us, we've now been on it for a few years, and I would say when you contemplate moving to a new system, particularly to the cloud system, be careful of the lift and shift, which is what we did. And so now we've actually gone back and done a lot of the rework on things like workflows and looked at where we weren't taking advantage of Oracle to the full extent of its capabilities. And our close isn't quite as fast as Derek's, but we have managed to cut 4 days out of it, which was really significant. And through the transparency and the real-time nature of the data that we have, as well as the one source of truth, we're now looking to even make more improvements there because we've been able to rework our allocation process. And as you can imagine, as a health plan, we have a pretty significant actuarial component to our monthly close. And we've been able to make some significant changes there and are looking to make more because of the data that we now have and the access and the timing of it. So those are all important. We also established a center of excellence, an Oracle Center of Excellence within finance that supports both finance and HR. And we had a great partnership with Oracle on putting that together. They said we've got a best-in-class design in terms of how we've stood this up, and kudos to my team members who are actually running it because they do all the heavy lifting on it. But it's similar experience. We can turn updates faster. We make the decisions on whether or not we want to do something or make a change in the configuration. And it's enabling us to go through this journey now on the workflow because we can experiment with changing some of the things that we have turned on or not a little faster because we don't have to, as you said, get on a docket and see when it would be prioritized by IT. Although I will say our IT partners have been great partners in this, and I think that that's a key part of success too.
It's actually great that you're saying that. And I want to be mindful. I promised you get to ask a question. So if there's any questions, let me see. Are there any questions right now from the audience that you would like to see addressed? I think I see one question there. Yeah, sorry.
Thank you. Now that you're all moved to the cloud, what do you consider today your greatest challenges and just cloud-related challenges for your business?
I think for us, the one thing that we're still sorting through is around the cycle on the upgrades. So the scheduled dates when the upgrades were, we were told they were going to be made, and our particular business cycle were not coinciding. And so we've spent a lot of time working with our Oracle partners around where we can make adjustments there. But the fact that you don't make those types of determinations internally anymore, it's good and it's bad. You know it's going to get done, but you're not totally in control of the timing on when some of that can occur. So that would be the one thing I would say you need to consider.
Yeah, one item that we've been really focused on that we think is really critical is making this, now that we've transitioned to cloud, making this part of everybody's day job. Because the traditional way of putting in a system and on-premise is you go through all the work, you do the implementation, and then the implementation's over, and you work with the technology for 5 years, whatever it is, and then you gear up for another implementation. As been discussed here with the quarterly updates, it's a part of everybody's day job. So it has to become part of the day job. I think it's a really important reason why with the implementation it should be business-led, because it can carry over into roles and responsibilities and a feeling of ownership and empowerment. So that once the implementation is over and you've got the platform, everyone feels empowered and owning the continuous improvement and driving towards the innovation which is really, I think, a really critical element to harness the power beyond the bread and butter things to get into more innovative solutions that really drive value.
I would just add, I'm sorry, I would just add one thing.
Send
We
it.
were concerned initially, I know, about security, because you think about something being in the cloud versus on premises. And I doubt there is an industry more sensitive to data privacy and security than a health plan right now. And we got very comfortable that we could maintain that security over our data. But that's one that I think pops up around cloud services sometimes too.
No, thank you for bringing it up. It's actually true. I mean, and thank God those discussions have more or less been proven that cloud can be that secure type of thing. But you're absolutely right. I mean, in the early days of cloud specifically, it was quite a concern. So thank you for bringing it up, Sandy. Just one more question.
Oh, okay. This question for Sandra. You said that lift and shift, be careful with that process when you go to cloud. Can you please elaborate on that one? That is first question. Second question is, when you go to cloud, for years and years, companies spend money on building customization, extensions, manufacturing operations. So a lot of opposition from the user community. How do we handle that one? Because when you go to cloud, you have to let go of a whole bunch of those things. You have to really skin it out. So how did you handle the opposition?
So I would say the two are related, and the reason I say be careful of lift and shift is that that's what happens. You have all of these things that you've customized over time, and you try and lift and put them into your new environment in the cloud, and it means you end up in some cases with some pretty heavily customized interfaces instead of looking at how you want to redesign the workflow up front for those things that were heavily customized originally. And in some cases, we're keeping them because it makes sense for the nature of our industry. And in other cases, we've concluded that we can undo that customization and go back to more of a standard workflow. But if you don't do that examination up front and just assume that however you're doing it now, you're going to do it the same way in the cloud, you're not getting the full benefit from the process. Does that help?
I'd like to add on this a little bit of that, because it's a question we get also very often, right? How do I deal with tender love and care that I've extended to my on-premise systems through customizations, and how do I preserve my identity potentially? In discussing with customers, we've several times seen that if you do a proper assessment, most of those customizations were done oftentimes decades ago. And if you look at the active usage of those extensions, it's even worse. Most of them have been caught up by standard processes. Give you one real example where we worked with a customer who had 15,000 customizations when we embarked on the journey with them. We ended up with 15 extensions that we felt were necessarily to complement the standard processes in cloud with platform as a service extensions. So there are opportunities, of course, to retain your identity, have extensions, and those are portable through updates, right? So there's absolutely the possibility to not retain the flexibility, yet please do not try to replicate the past in the cloud. See it as a chance to really look at your business from anew.
I heard someone not too long ago say, everybody is special and nobody's all that unique when it comes to companies. And I think that applies to workflow processes as well, especially in something like finance or human capital.
Absolutely. There's one final question, and then I guess we also...
So it seems like what you're talking about is taking a lot of legacy products and replacing them with a cloud system, up to speed, state-of-the-art, best in breed, right? But what I'm hearing is that a lot of the ownership issues and roles and responsibilities that fit into those upgraded systems are now the legacy products, right? So does anyone have in place a blueprint for transforming the roles and responsibilities and the workforce underneath those platforms?
John?
Well, that's something that we took a very hard look at, because I think you're right. Some of the legacy organizational structures they're not relevant anymore. And I think what you find in the heart of many of those is that if we were to go back in time, a lot of the legacy organizations, IT was shouldering a much bigger, broader share of the weight versus the business. And so I think it is really important when you do an implementation, personally, that it, one, be business-led, and that you are re-architecting all of those roles and responsibilities through the implementation. One thing that really helped us is we've been very acquisitive. So all of those program management type of operations we had with integrations, we brought that in, which that's what you're essentially doing, is you're bringing together a collection of a bunch of people from different parts of the organization that don't normally work together to work together in a new way and be pushing the boulder, hopefully all the same direction. And I think without that, to your point, you will struggle.
Perfect. I'm seeing we're out of time, so first of all, thank you so much for the interactive participation. I appreciate that. I want to thank my esteemed panel here for sharing their insights. And I want to leave you with a provocative thought. The provocative thought being, that's Jürgen's saying, not an Oracle saying, I'd like to think that corporate Darwinism in the age of digital has already been unkind to some. We see that in the composition of the S&P 500. I'd like to think that corporate Darwinism in the age of the emerging technologies might be ruthless. So I really invite you, as you leave Oracle OpenWorld, to think very hard. If you have not embarked on a cloud journey, if you can afford sitting on the sidelines for too long, customers who have embarked on this journey have seen significant results. We're very proud of the partnership with those customers. We learn from them every day. And I hope you become part of that journey as well. And with that, hopefully you can enjoy the rest of OpenWorld. I know it's almost winding down here for most. Some of them might pack a plane already. But I'm very grateful for your attendance and look forward to working with every one of you. Thank you so much. And thank you so much to the panel.
Thank you.
Thank you.